So I only have a quick preface for you guys this time, but keep in mind that all of this that happened in the story happened before the whole outbreak. So yeah, that should add some context. All right, enjoy the video. There are points in one's life where they must make decisions for the betterment of their own life. And I believe that I recently came across one of those moments in December of last year. Specifically, I came to a crossroads in regards to my relationship with my best friend, who for this video will be named Richard. Richard and I had been friends for more than a decade, and we were the perfect partners in crime. He was the more goofy one to my straight man, we were neighbors, we had our first job together, we went to the movies together on a religious basis, and we were planning on making the world ours one day. In fact, one could say that when we combined our charisma and creativity, there was absolutely nothing that could stop us. Well, except for one thing. One night he and I had just met up with another one of our mutual friends at an Applebee's. I had noticed from the moment he walked in that he was feeling distraught and exhausted with dismay. This realization prodded me on to ask what was wrong, and so I did. After about a minute or so of unwavering silence, he told me what it was, and due to my awareness of triggers and keeping private things private, I am going to keep the details of that conversation omitted. What I will say is that it isn't murder or anything like that, but it is something that I would consider reprehensible and unforgivable in my moral code. When he said what it was, I couldn't speak. I sat there attempting to maintain my composure. Thoughts were racing through my head at 1 billion miles per minute. How could he do something like that? What were the warning signs? Were there even warning signs? Should I have known that this was an issue beforehand, and could I have done anything to stop it? And the final one that stuck with me even when I left the Applebee's that night. How am I supposed to move forward after this? I got home at about midnight and slumped into my bed. I was petrified, I was confused, and it felt like all of the time I invested in a decade of friendship was for nothing. Absolutely nothing. I decided on that fateful night, after hours of staring at a blank wall that held none of the answers I was looking for, that I couldn't do it. After knowing what I knew, I could no longer have Richard in my life as a best friend, an acquaintance. Absolutely nothing. We had a somewhat rocky friendship, and a load of second chances were given out on both sides, but at a certain point, the barrier is cemented to the point where there is no opportunity of using vapid and nonsensical excuses to climb it, only to end up in the same situation you were in before. So after that night, I would no longer interact with Richard. And I truly thought that until about a week into February, when I discovered that there was a very high chance that for the next year I would be going to China to teach ESL. I thought of all the people I had to say goodbyes to, and for the first time in about a month, Richard's name popped into my thoughts. I had done a pretty good job at expelling him completely from my surroundings, so there weren't any reminders up until that very moment. Naturally, the memories came flooding back and my mind was in a state of chaos. Obviously, I didn't want to get involved with him after what had happened again, but leaving my ex-best friend for another country after we had planned to travel the world together was something that seemed gut-wrenching, even with all things considered. I paced my room for a while and thought about the different options I had. Meeting in person was out of the question, as if I saw him again, I would either want to punch his face in or break down crying. Even talking on the phone seemed like something I couldn't get a grasp on actually doing. At this point, it was time for me to go to work, and I decided that this decision could go on the back burner for a little bit. Work went by as usual, and although my focus was solely on my task at hand, I couldn't help but lend a little bit of attention to the burning question in the back of my head. Eventually, my shift ended, and I came back home and decided to pick up some video games. I'm a console guy more than a PC guy, so I decided to start on my Xbox and go for some NBA 2K20, as I do at least once every week. After about half an hour, I began to feel bored and that the game was just tedious at the moment. I browsed through my games on the console and nothing in particular struck me as exciting and fresh. Then, in a pull from the extreme depths of my memory, I remembered that I had a Wii and some games stashed below the bed in my spare bedroom. Quickly, I darted into said room and awkwardly pulled out the blue tote from beneath my childhood bed. Once I brought it into my room, I rifled through the games, and about halfway in, I saw the Wii iteration of Smash, which I decided would be my entertainment. I started up a new campaign and thoroughly enjoyed beating the bosses and unlocking the characters that I did on the journey. That is until the nostalgia hit. The majority of memories I have playing Smash were of me and Richard chipping away at its campaign for a whole entire summer when we were in middle school. We set it to the hardest difficulty, and every day from 2 to 7 in the afternoon, you could find us in my living room trying to win on the highest difficulty. It was a tradition we kept every summer until we had to get jobs that required more attention in the latter half of our high school years. But there was one summer that stuck out in my mind very quickly. It was in 2009, in the transitional summer between 7th and 8th grade, where Richard and I managed to scrounge up enough money that we hadn't already put into our college funds to buy a brand new game. And that game was Super Mario Galaxy. I remembered having good memories of the game and thought I didn't sell it, so I went to the tote and it was at the bottom of the pile. I dusted off the disc, put it in, and suddenly, it's 12 hours later. The game is completed, and I am in awe. It was absolutely euphoric. I was lost in an expansive and ethereal landscape where I could drop everything on my mind and manifest a piece of myself into a world that I had forgotten about for a decade. It was almost an unconscious experience, as I don't have many memories from the body I belong to. All I can remember is the world I had been plopped into, unknowing of the journey that was to come. Instead of being surrounded by a dull and dreary bedroom with snow falling outside the window, I was thrown into various environments with lush and gorgeous atmospheres that all personified a very distinct emotion. And somehow, I felt every single one of those emotions at the most elevated level that can possibly be imagined. Now, is that solely the effect of the game itself, or was it intensified due to the specific scenario? I won't speculate. But I remembered the colors. The beautiful lights of the ship I resided on contrasting hauntingly with the bordering blackness of space that engulfs everything that it comes into contact with. Yet, somehow, in the midst of the shroud of blackness, you managed to find a bunch of fantastical and unique planets that each required your utmost immersion, and required it badly. The colors were bright, and the landscapes were glorious, and more than all of that, the thematic relevance to my current situation was not lost on me, especially when I shut off the system and laid back down in my bed. In the dark, I thought about all the friends I had gone through in my past. Through middle school, high school, college, there have been so many passing faces entering and abruptly exiting my life that, at this point, I don't think I could even count. And with all of these friendships, I never had a direct falling out with the person. It would just be a slow and gradual fading away. We would begin changing as people, and ultimately, either our personalities or our interests simply wouldn't line up with each other. Our time as friends and the memories that I would carry from each friendship would be exquisite, and something that I would cherish for the rest of my life. But the pull apart would end up being stronger than the push together, if that makes sense. But Richard was different. He had been a mainstay in my life for a decade, and I owed some of my key life lessons due to experiences with him. He was, for all intents and purposes, my home. Super Mario Galaxy is a game of many destinations. You scour all space to find many different wondrous planets with countless beauties to discover and explore. However, there is an inevitable fact that once the star has been found, you have to leave. Now, in the immediate moments after you leave, you will be sad. You will reminisce over the amazing features that the planet had and the magic that specific place held for you. But eventually, it will be time for you to go on another adventure to another planet, and guess what? You will discover another completely unique magic from the next planet you go to, and the next, and the next, and the next, and so forth. Life can come at you very fast, and it can be pretty easy to get caught up in your thoughts. What will happen when I leave this place? How will I be able to live without this person in my life? What's my ultimate purpose? These are all questions that I've had in the past, and I think it's safe to say that they're sentimentalities that are shared commonly amongst pretty much everybody. But as I begin to see time passing me by at a more rapid rate than ever, I've come to the realization that the reason this time is passing me by so fast because instead of marveling at what I've been given in front of me at the moment, I worry about how much time that I have left with it. That's what Super Mario Galaxy does so well. It essentially strips you bare of your concerns and worries and forces you to be in the moment. That is, until you get to the moment where the game ends, and you must say goodbye to the world that you have invested what seems like a lifetime into. There's a certain pang in your stomach knowing that you will never be able to experience this feeling of wonderment again in its purest form of a fresh experience. The spaceship that you were always able to retreat to will no longer be there to come back to. And at first glance, that can be absolutely devastating. I know that it was for me on my first playthrough of the game. But you know what the craziest thing is? It's not really the end. There are an abundance of other adventures to go on with Mario, Galaxy 2, Sunshine, Odyssey, Maker, The Brothers, 64, and don't even get me started on the sports games. So even though it seems like the end, it's not really the end. Richard was an amazing friend. Although we most certainly had our ups and downs, the time that we spent together running to get groceries, sleeping over at each other's houses playing scary games, and spending our summers on an actual boat will hold a permanent place of happiness in my head. Those will be memories that I can constantly visit and appreciate their beauty. And even though it was time for us to split apart, we will both have amazing adventures ahead of us in the future. For the past month and a half, I had been doing my best to block out any memory of him that I ever had, as it only reminded me of the thing that he had done. But I can't let myself live like that. There's a saying out there that goes something along the lines of, I will forgive, but I won't forget. In the case of losing my best friend, I won't forgive, but I most certainly won't forget. Alright, that's the video. I'm sorry I got a little emotional at the end, but it happens to the best of us, you know? This was a really personal story to me, and I think the relevance is, again, pretty significant and relates to what we're all going through right now with this whole pandemic going on and the fact that most of our futures are unknown. We don't know exactly what's going to be happening. We don't know where we're going to be going in the next couple of months, let alone a couple of years. But yeah, I just want to get this out there. If you're watching this, Richard, I hope that you are doing okay. You know who you are. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to subscribe, it'd be really awesome. We're going to be putting out more content on a regular basis. I'm going to try and be getting out at least 2 videos a week. So yeah, and then you also have Jake. He's going to be putting out videos, I want to say, at least once every 2 weeks. So thank you so much for the support, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.